Welcome to Free Cheese episode 514. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Mark Augustiniak.
Hey.
Matt Sellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week, another episode, another entry for the list, and we're adding none other than the Super Nintendo's Super Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. More on that, its development, our history with it, and of course, its coveted spot on the list soon. But first, I want to know, Matt, Mark, let's start with you. Is there a licensed video game you wish would have been made?
A licensed video game?
Is there a movie you saw or a TV show you were watching when you were a children and you said, I want to play a video game of this, but there just wasn't one?
I don't think it exists, so I'm gonna say Highlander.
Oh, that's a good answer. You know what? I should probably be on the Bing to see if these exist. Matt,
if
what
it
about
did,
you?
I completely missed it, but yeah, gotta have that soundtrack.
Would it be weird if I said a licensed baseball game? I'm talking real little.
How little?
Like I didn't have access to a PlayStation 1 or a PC what had triple play or whatever baseball games. Then maybe there was licensed baseball games on Super Nintendo, but I do not remember.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because at one point it wasn't anything like that. It was just
right. Like I could not pick the Baltimore Orioles or whatever.
Right.
I guess. Well, I guess again, I didn't have access to PlayStation 1 until a little bit older.
They definitely would have done it there. I'm trying to remember when the first one was. That's a good point. Because I remember my childhood baseball game was the Baltimore Eagles. Were the
right.
All
shit like that.
Yeah, like all I remember is like on Super Nintendo there was like a Ken Griffey game where you could do,
where they actually like
home run derby
teams
stuff or whatever.
So that's where that stuff gets weird. It's like when you look at NHL, I think like NHL, like the first proper, was it 94? Like I think that had the NHL PA, so they had the players, but maybe not the teams. And then the one we played on the list, NHL Stanley Cup, had the teams but not the players.
Right. But you would want both, right?
Right. I don't want to. I don't want to play as Cal Ripken on the Baltimore Eagles. I want to play as Cal Ripken on the goddamn Baltimore Orioles.
But if you had to pick, what's more important, the teams or the athletes?
For sure, the teams, because the athletes move left and right now. Someone you buy a jersey for doesn't. They're going to be gone the next day.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm scared I just pulled that off myself.
So, Mark, there was a Highlander video game, but it was only released on the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, and the ZX Spectrum. So
before my time.
Yeah, and also wrong side of the planet for us, mostly.
Okay, yeah, so nothing on, like, Super Nintendo, because that's what I'm thinking. Like, if I went to Blockbuster, look on the walls, Highlander! It's like... Yep. That would have been a great game.
My licensed game desire, I actually wrote a pitch. I wrote a pitch article. So I had a friend whose dad worked for Sony, and to me that meant he could probably just take my ideas up the chain and get a PlayStation game made. So I wrote a pitch out to get an Animorphs video game made.
Dude.
And they came out with an Animorphs video game, and I was like, this isn't what I wanted, but it's, maybe I made something happen.
That's awesome.
But they should probably make an Animorphs game now, too. But yeah, I think it was definitely... I distinctly remember it was the PlayStation era when I was like, I need an Animorphs video game. Otherwise, I feel like any of the shows that were on like Cartoon Network that probably ended up getting games in like the Game Boy Advance era, but I was looking for them in like the PS1 era.
there might, I don't know if there might be a game that exists I'm not thinking of, but Reboot would have been another good one.
Oh yeah, that would have been great. Feels like that would have been a Dreamcast game. You know what I mean?
At least PS1.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dreamcast for sure. Or PC, just to be in character.
Matt, I'm having a hard time finding out when the first game.
I've been looking to there again. So I found one. I closed the tab already. I found one by LJN, but it was what I just said. Like the teams were licensed, but it didn't have the backing by the Players Association, and that was like on Nintendo. I think it was like an 80 something.
Yeah, it's not going to do it.
Maybe it's not for lack of there being one, but for lack of knowing and or funds or hardware. Because I think the first one I properly play is like MLB 98. Good old 989 sports.
The good stuff.
That's a very good.
Well, we did not have to desire or wish for a movie tie-in to The Empire Strikes Back because, in fact, there were 4 of them. 3 home console and 1 arcade, as far as I could find. And this week's game, developed by Sculptured Software with LucasArts, published by JVC Musical Industries, released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System on June 1st, 1993. Happy 30th birthday, Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. Back of the box reads, will you accept the challenge of a Jedi Knight? Pursued across the galaxy, you and your rebel forces now marshal new strength on the remote ice world of Hoth. Although tracked by probe droids, attacked by ice monsters, and confronted by an army of gigantic Imperial walkers, you must not give in. You are the Alliance's only hope. Learn the ways of the Force, then test your skills in this fast-paced, action-packed sequel to the hit game, Super Star Wars. I've got our breakdown bullet points here, fellas. Sequel to the award-winning Super Star Wars. 12 megabits of action. 3 different player perspectives. Password system for access to higher levels. And, wouldn't you know it, packed with cool graphics, sound effects, and music. Nothing I love more in a video game than cool graphics. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, it has cool graphics at a cost.
It does. Is that what you want to lead with?
What's your favorite graphic?
No, we don't need to lead there. But I'm just saying they emphasize the graphics because it definitely comes at a cost.
It does come at a cost. Yes,
it is good sprite work though.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You guys are tapping into. I'm like you're giving me great directions to take this conversation. I'm going to start the conversation with our traditional weekly question. Matt, you added this game to season 11. Sorry. I'm going to keep doing that, thinking I'm still in season 12. We're not there yet. You added this to season 11. What about Super Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back made it worthy?
This comes from one of those games from childhood kind of thing that I wanted to relive. I knew very early on in building the list for season 11 I want a Star Wars game on it. I fully grew up loving the original trilogy, seeing them in theaters during the re-release in 96, 97 I think it was, around those periodically throughout that time. And seeing the prequels as well, and not knowing any different that they were bad until growing up and rewatching them numerous times that they were bad. So, I kind of knew early on I wanted a Star Wars game, and I was kind of leaning towards Dark Forces of all games on the PC, the first-person shooter. But I decided, no, let's put the one that I played religiously, and I played this game religiously. I I thought it was super cool to be Luke Skywalker, hold a lightsaber. I know you have the gun as well and shoot, but I liked playing this game a lot. I distinctly remember this game graphically, like looking good, as this says on the back of the box. I just like the overall Star Wars property, and I like playing this game. And I played it so much that somehow, I don't remember when, but somehow at some point growing up, I did beat this game properly. That
explains a lot.
As like I said, early on I knew I wanted a Star Wars game. It's kind of went with this one. I think this is probably my first Star Wars game, to be quite frank.
When playing this game, did you... I guess this question's for both of you, and it's equal to back then and now, but when playing this game, did you find it tied into the movie well enough? Like, were you able to recognize places, faces, characters, scenes? Does it...
Yeah, I think it does a real good job of, because there's no usually when you get like a movie tie-in or something like that, there's like an extra level to pad out, right? Like we see it both ways, how it's hard to do. It's hard to take a 10-hour story in a video game and convert it down to 2, and we equally see it with the licensed properties taking a 2-hour movie and trying to convert it out to like a 6-hour thing. But there's not a lot of waste here. Like all the levels pretty much do its job of reliving some of a moment or something like that, or getting you in closer to a moment of the movies or whatever. But yeah, no, I back then, again, that was one of the main reasons why I liked Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie. Not that I follow Star Wars too much today anymore. But yeah, no, that was my favorite movie. It's one of my favorite Star Wars. This was one of my favorite Star Wars games back then. I thought I did a real good job reliving some of those locales.
Mark, what about you? What's your Star Wars background? Were these games you played before? Is this your first time through this one?
This is my first time through this one. I've only played the first Super Star Wars. I rented it from Blockbuster. Couldn't get past the beginning segments, and then that was that. It was too tough for me. But I loved Star Wars growing up. I always thought that the original trilogy was one movie because my dad had it all recorded on one VHS, and I would just watch it.
That's awesome.
And this was before the re-releases in theaters. So we had a friend who had cable, and he would record movies, and we would borrow them from him. But I don't know if this came from him or this. I don't know how my dad got this one, but yeah, like that was probably one of my most overplayed VHSs. And I was just obsessed with all of that, to where like I would, because I didn't have a lot of Star Wars action figures, and we collected a lot of action figures between my brothers and I growing up. Didn't have a lot of Star Wars, so I would have like other figures in substitute. And I remember specifically for Luke, because he had the orange outfit for his X-Wing getup. I had a Batman figure from the animated series that had an orange suit, like a bright, hot orange suit. It might have been either something scuba related or gliding related. But he was my Luke, basically, until I had a Luke figure. And then, like, who cares? But, like, I didn't have a lightsaber. So I remember having an old X-Men action figure of Apocalypse, and he had this weird, like, staff gun thing. I don't know how to describe it. It was like this weird spear thing, but it had, like, a weird handle, as if it was like a minigun on how you would hold it. And that was my lightsaber equivalent at the time. So I would have that while watching all those movies.
Are they saying they took your idea for Count Dooku's lightsaber design from your action figure?
I don't know, maybe. But
no, but
yeah. But I know, like, towards the end of episode 4, beginning of episode 5 was definitely my favorite part of Star Wars growing up. And yeah, I mean, eventually got the figures and everything. But yeah, I was obsessed for a good while. But funny enough, didn't really play the games until like teenage years, I guess, or a little later. But yeah, that Super Star Wars, only that first one. I never played this one till now. And then but I have a better grip on playing this now. So I'll say that. I definitely stood a better chance at this age versus being 5 years old.
That's a good way of putting it.
Tell me why. What specifically?
Well, now I know what I'm getting myself into. I knew that these games were notorious for being stupid hard, and you're just bombarded with enemies nonstop, and I can see if you were able to beat this game, Souls-like games are probably not a problem for you. So that's why I said...
Trust me, I know I did not. I know I needed passwords.
Like, this felt like the old NES Ninja Gaiden game, like, cranked up.
Yeah.
Where as soon as you leave a screen, enemies are respawning, everything hates you. If you're not double jumping your way through this game, you're playing it wrong.
So actually, that's not the way to play it optimally. At least not from the speedrun I watched.
Oh, wow.
Well, it worked for me.
That's probably how I played as a kid, but yeah, no. Sorry.
The double jump in this game that Mark's alluding to, I assume it's the same one I'm talking. You do a front flip with your lightsaber, and you are able to just sort of cut through anything.
And in some spots, it would lead you to secret areas. You would just constantly just fly up 50 feet to a little secret platform.
Accidentally weird, crazy. Yeah, so
force jumping.
That is the way to go. But Matt, what's the alternative? Because I also played this game for a pretty long time before realizing you could use other weapons.
So yeah, it's the gun, but this is where the skill part of this comes in too. Mm-hmm. You may have noticed you may have gotten blaster rifle upgrades. If you tier that up to what I think is considered the plasma rifle, one shot of that is actually more powerful than a lightsaber swing. The lightsaber swing is as powerful as the level down from it. So if you can get your blaster upgrade early, that is the most efficient way of taking care of enemies and bosses and stuff. The caveat is, though, if you just die once, not even all your lives, if you just die once, your blaster upgrade is gone, and you have to recoup it. Mm-mm. So again, skill is required to keep it, but technically, if you can hang on to that blaster rifle, that seems to be the way to go.
So we haven't really unpacked this before. I think this is an interesting angle to take. Why do you think they made it that way? Right, we've talked about licensed games before, and usually licensed games are a product of, limited budget, limited time frame, and usually something intended to release with a film or a something, right? So you see it a lot with superhero movies back in the 90s, with any movie, big movie or whatever. But this is a game that was coming out more than a decade after the movie did. There's no need, there was no rush, there was no, no specific time they were trying to hit. So why do you think they didn't, go for it? This was a choice, right? And maybe they still had budgetary restrictions that I'm not aware of, but what do you think?
I don't know. It sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Exclusive to Super Nintendo, you have Super in the name. You're fully utilizing what they got to offer, and that sound chip made me think of A Link to the Past with some of those tracks. Yeah. I think whoever with that company developing it, they probably just seemed like they had a lot of fun with it. They were able to be very creative and take what is Hoth, which is essentially just a barren snowland, and fill it with tons of creatures you've never seen in the movie, and you just go ham on it. But it's such a creative, arcadey way, and it just seemed like a lot of effort was put into that, having the, what are they called, the wampas or whatever, for that boss fight or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just a giant ass thing coming down on you. It's obviously not like that in the movie, but it's so cool that it feels so video gamey that you don't question it, because it's just a nice remix of it. But obviously it's so stupid hard, because I feel like everything had to be hard back then just to get your money's worth.
That's fair, yeah, to keep you playing and playing and playing.
Yeah, so you're not done with it, so it's that's probably the biggest reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's the it's the encouraging the rent a culture and buying encouraging blockbusters to buy more copies because more people are taking it out to try to beat it. I just think it's the console equivalent of a quarter eater.
Yeah, that's fair.
Striking when the iron's hot.
This game features, I counted 3 different game types or gameplay modes. The side-scrolling action platformer, a side-scrolling shooter, and then a flight, which also had shooting, but, you're kind of behind the back. This is where, to Mark's point of taking advantage of the Super Nintendo exclusivity, the game leans into Mode 7 and shows off what 3D can look like. Did you guys have a favorite gameplay style or section type? Or
I felt like I could best survive in Mode 7 for a long period of time.
That makes sense.
I always the Mode 7 stuff, like playing, that's like the thing I remember the most as a kid, was playing that Hoth level. And for the longest time, I always got stuck on the Hoth level because I didn't know. I think I got this game before I seen Empire proper, so I did not know about the tow cable for the Imperial Walkers. And you have to, at some point, you have to take down, 5 or 10 of them. I forget which objectives were for which. But, you have to take them down, and shooting them does nothing. And so I just remember getting stuck on that level time and time and time and time again until, I come to the, revelation, holy shit, there's a tow cable mapped to L and R on these buttons. And then you finally, it's almost like that realization, you take down your first one, you're like, oh my god, I can finally progress through this game. But no, I don't know if there's a favorite because they're all hard as nails, but Mode 7 felt like the most unique in this game.
I think I agree. That was the thing that stood out to me the most. I've never played a game where you had to trip something or someone before. It felt like a WarioWare minigame as a full gameplay mechanic that, I
can see that.
It's just a neat thing that I've never seen someone design around prior to this. Did you have a favorite section or chunk of section, Mark?
Yeah, to kind of echo Matt, it was all kind of a struggle, but I like it did feel a little nicer to be side scroll shooting in a ship or something versus just hopping around and not hoping you don't fall on the spikes or something like that. So I guess even though I like jumping around with the lightsaber and just kind of screw attack flipping through everything, that also feels good just to see everything explode because nothing bleeds. but there's something a little, I guess, alleviating about not having to worry about pitfalls. Plus, I'm just a sucker for just ship combat in general, I guess.
No, yeah, those sections felt like playing the all range mode stuff in Star Fox. It was very much in that. And then the game starts out and you are on Hoth playing as Luke, but you do reach a point where you suddenly switch. And the first character you swap to is Han Solo, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you get to play as Chewbacca as well. Did you have a favorite character to play as, either of you?
It's not fair to the other characters because they're iconic, but he's Luke Skywalker because he has a lightsaber. I think that's both as a kid and today. Give me the lightsaber any day of the week. And then later on, after you get through, looking at the level list in front of me, after you get through Dagobah, which is 2/3 through the game, that's when Luke knows some force powers that he can use, levitate and force heal. I think there's a throw as well. I don't remember all the force powers, but Luke becomes so multi-dimensional in the way he's able to play. It's tough to say give me Han Solo lobbing grenades.
Yeah. Do you think there's stuff they could have added to Han and Chewbacca to make?
No, I think that's just the cool a Jedi.
Yeah. So talked about it a little bit before, but the number of characters on screen makes the game pretty difficult, the respawn rate, but it also impacts the performance of the game. That's the thing that kind of stuck out to me at first was, and it's funny, like I remember Matt and I talking about it before I played, and I think you led with like, hey, the game definitely has some slowdown, and I indicated like maybe I could mess around with something on the Mister, and like, so
that was before I even like emulated it or played it or whatever. Like I just remember like there's slowdown. Yeah. I kind of said I hope my emulation picks up on the slowdown. Yeah,
because there are things now with emulation, with whether that's hardware or software, like you can kind of overclock these old systems or play them in a different way. And like the most famous example I always think of is Gradius 3 on the SNES, like overclocking that so you can play it without slowdown, and it's a totally different experience. And I thought maybe if this gets super bad, I'll just do that, but I didn't. I ended up just kind of playing it as was and whatever. But did that, I guess, how was that back when you were younger playing? How did you guys fare with it this time around?
I think it's one of those things as a kid. It's like you don't know what a bad movie is. Like you don't know what a bad game is either. I just don't think I know any better, right? Like, I mean, what's the equivalent to this game that I'm playing? Mario? Sure. Like, yeah, I just think it is, like, but, like, I remember the slowdown, like, before even, like, revisiting this, like, years later. So, like, I remember it enough to, like, to mention it, but I forgot how bad it really was.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah,
Mark, what was your experience?
I mean, I can't speak for this game specifically as a kid, but dealing with the Super Nintendo when any games would have slowdown, yeah, like I never really questioned it. I just kind of thought that's just what games do, like it was just a thing.
Yeah.
I never saw it as good or bad. It was just, all right, this happens. I don't know why, but I'm not going to focus on it. And like even on NES, like playing like the old like Ninja Turtles games, like especially the first one, there's a lot of slowdown in that. But like as a kid, I want to say that I kind of appreciated slowdown when it would happen because it gave me a chance to try to like to think and react a little better to things, or like pay attention or help focus.
Or all the ways you were about to get fucked in the next 5 frames.
Sure, yeah, we're like, you see that, you pause it, you're jumping up and down with the controller, screaming, you're frustrated. Reset, pull the cartridge out while it's still...
I mean, Mark, you made the Dark Souls comparison earlier, and it's that thing of like, this has this same element where as you play through any of those types of games, a lot of it is, right, like, it's not that it's necessarily difficult. It's just that you need to learn exactly what to do, right? There's a precise answer to your input in order for you to proceed. And until you learn it, you're just going to die. You're going to fail over and over and over again. And the problem is that, like, when you overcome a challenge in a game like this or any other Dark Souls or whatever else, you overcome the challenge only to be met with a brand new one that you need to relearn from the beginning. So, like, getting through a level or an area or a section, it's always like momentary celebration, because then immediately there's an onslaught of brand new hazards and nightmares that await you that you need to now figure out. You do learn skills and earn skills. Like, not only is the player or the character upgrades, but you, the player, upgrades, right? Not unlike Dark. Okay, so this now, this really is coming together.
The only difference is
I don't think I'll put the pieces together myself.
This might be a little more. This might be a little more brutal, only in the sense of like, the way they punish you with progress.
The live system. I mean, it's the live system game.
Yeah. Well, like it's like the only time you have a checkpoint system is if you die during a boss fight. It'll take you right outside before the boss. Otherwise, you're back at the fucking beginning. Like, have fun.
Yeah, it's Yeah, it's just it's brutal. And it's the worst things too. Like, it's in any side scroller like this when you have extreme knockback, no invincibility during that knockback, and just the endless, like, you get knocked back and your screen moves left for you just to move right, and the same exact shit is coming back your way. Like, it's like the three worst things you can have in a side scroller, that just add to the brutal. It just added to the difficulty. Especially, I know early on there's some early platforming on the health section, and it's like, if you got shot by a laser, you're down into the pits, and that's a life. It's tough.
When you have those little wampas that come at you and they freeze you, and then everything's just hitting you all at once, and you can't break out of it. And it's like, sorry, buddy, here's a slope. Have fun.
Yep, here's on to the next life.
Yeah.
But that's where I want to get to, like, the performance, right? Like, you have all this stuff, and then add that in, and it's not just like, oh, it's slow. And to what Mark said, there are times where, like, it kind of does help you think, but I feel like it also affects your inputs at time, where you're not hitting it on a correct frame because it's frame skipping almost. And like a jump doesn't register the correct way, and then you fall into said pit of thorns or whatever. I feel like I had that happen to me, just as much almost as actual, like, death by enemies and life bar and whatever. And like in that, like, that is just another thing that adds to the difficulty of this game, and it's not something that's supposed to be there. It's like this weird artificial difficulty. And that's the part that, like, it really crosses the line, because this game is already so hard. The super cool graphics that they point out in the back of the box also make it super hard in addition to the super hard already.
Mind you, when I was playing this, I picked easy.
Oh, yeah, no, I was an idiot. I picked normal. But no, even the speedrunner that I was watching picked easy and died on easy. And he knew what he was doing.
It's pretty tough. And I didn't know off the bat that, like, L and R were to look up and down. And that helps a lot when you're platforming and trying to, like, not take a leap of faith on something.
So I just the whole list from the last two seasons, I've learned that anything from, like, the PlayStation 1 and back, I'm going to look up the instructions manual and just give a quick, because I forgot about, like, I forgot about the weapon switching, but, like, again, like, I found it, there was a button in the instruction manual that said to do it. It was even given some, like, advanced, like, moves you could pull off in the instruction manual that, again, it was it got weird with the scenario and stuff like that, but when to use it. But, like, there was stuff in the instruction manual that was, like, trying to, like, help you. It was telling you how to use all the special items. Like, it gave you, like, a breakdown of the special items as well, so that way on the fly, like, you weren't trying to figure out what it was on the fly. Like, So, like, that's one of those things where, you're just kind of thrown into it, but also I think in this day and age, you should read the instruction manual before starting the game as well.
For sure.
I'm trying to approach it like, you rented it from Blockbuster and just didn't come with
that sucks. I can't imagine.
Or
I was lucky to own this game.
The booklet's there, but pages are ripped or something.
Leading into this, I forget which one of you was doing it, or if it was me too, or all of us, I don't remember. But we kept forgetting which of these Super Star Wars games we were playing.
I thought we were doing the first one.
Okay.
For a while. And then I realized closer to the day that it was, because I thought it was the one I had played before, and I was like, oh, I get to redeem myself, and then it was never that one.
Well, after having played it, do you remember which game we played?
What do you mean?
Played?
Yeah, after playing through this game, are you familiar with the title of what this video game is now?
No, what is it called?
Okay, it's Super Star. For the listeners who've not played the game, I guess you'd call them loading screens. It's weird because it's
Transitions.
a cartridge-based game, but yeah, they're
Transitions.
transition screens. But the game constantly flashes the logo
with the dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, like you get a little flick of the title, the little John Williams flavor, and then the actual logo, and yeah.
And then you always have like Luke looking right at you, like right at the screen, as if he's waiting for you to say it's okay to go outside and poop or something, like he's a dog.
Yeah, I have expected him to like do a thumbs up to the player like every time that character sprite. Yeah.
Can I go? Can I? Yeah, Luke, go.
Yeah, and then the sad part is you will hear it, and then potentially 10 seconds later you hear it again. And seems like
yeah, the logo pops up quite a bit.
Yeah, I like it though. It's cool. One thing about the super cool graphics, I love that Luke's hair blows in the wind. Such a dumb detail.
No, that's a great detail. Like, it's something that a game like this didn't need to do, right? Like,
look at Chewbacca.
I think to your point earlier, right? Like, when you're comparing this to other games you'd played, like, oh, this is like Mario, right? When you're a kid, Mario is Mario, and Mario feels a lot better than Mario, and you know Mario's better than this, but you don't care because Mario's not Luke Skywalker.
Right.
He's not cool. He's a fat little chubby dude in a pair of overalls. Like, might as well be your dad's friend Chris. But like, this is like Luke Skywalker, so it's cool. And like, that's all they need to do is just put Luke Skywalker in a game and it'll sell.
Yeah.
But the fact that they took time to do those little things to make the boss fights bigger and more video gamey, but also still relevant to the world.
Even with like the cutscenes, like even though like a lot of that is probably just like images just JPEG'd and resampled into like pixel work, or maybe it's all hand drawn. But like like they were pretty cinematic. Like it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they fill in the plot of the movie well enough, right? Like where you can follow along and
yeah.
And then it's talking like sounds and stuff. Like it got the lightsaber like that. It nails it. Like it's I really dig like the presentation piece of this. It looks cool. It goes to all the areas. There's no waste either. None of this, like everything that happens in a level. All right, sorry, not verbatim, but like every level is a location in the movie. Yeah, they add in some enemies or whatever, but like the end result, like the boss fight or whatever, is probably something that was like a thing in that, that area of the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the presentation piece is phenomenal. I think that's the part that kept me coming back. Like it looks good, sounds like Star Wars, and it's Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber and a side scroller. Like,
yeah, because in the first game, I don't even think you start with the lightsaber because you're just going up that stupid Java vehicle, and it's just platforming nightmare. So the fact that you get to start with it, it's like, thank you.
I mean, no, if it's following the movie, you don't get it until
after you meet Obi-Wan.
It's Obi-Wan, yeah.
I guess we've reached that corner of the podcast where I get to say this part, but I never liked Star Wars and still don't like Star Wars. And I think that I'm not being that guy, but right. I think it's important to point out that I still think this game was good despite all of that. And I was actually surprised when we sat down and looked at our whole list of games. This was definitely one that going into it for the duration of the year leading up to actually sitting down to play it, it was not one that I'm looking forward to. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I just don't like Star Wars. Not my thing. Whatever. Like we're going to have that when we put these games in the list. But I was genuinely surprised at how well it was. Especially also, like, not just that I have an aversion to the property, but also the fact that I kind of knew a little bit about, like, well, this game's a little choppy. This game's difficult. This game, like, I kind of had an expectation of what a licensed game is, right? Different from what we talked about last week with The Darkness, but not unlike, like, I honestly expected this to be like another Cool Spot or a Batman Forever or something like that. And it is not that at all. Like, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, there's some technical issues that probably make it tougher and make it worse than it needs to be. But on the whole, I think it has like interesting, unique stage design, level design, gameplay design. Like the variance in gameplay is cool because also like this game, it's can you do 2 players in this?
No.
I don't think there's an option for that. No,
I didn't think, but like this is very much like obviously, I feel like you could sit around with family, friends, whatever, and pass the controller back and forth. And what's neat about a game like this is you could get to a stage that is completely different gameplay wise and let someone play something that they like, right? Or they have a strength at.
So, I mean, I know it's another game, but the next one, Return of the Jedi, there's a character select per each level.
Oh, interesting.
Like Leia plays a little bit differently. You have than Han or Chewie, and then of course you have Mr. Skywalker himself with the lightsaber.
Sure. Huh. Yeah, but that like, I think that stuff builds this out as a bigger package, and probably why, oddly enough, this game and its other 2 counterparts ended up being released on the Wii Virtual Console. Like that still is like a fact that I learned during the lead up to this that baffles me, that licensed games just don't get re-released, right? Like having that like Disney Afternoon Collection a couple years back that came out was like an anomaly because of like just doesn't happen. Like there's too many people involved, too many companies that are either dead or have changed or whatever, that there's no way to pull that off. The fact that this got re-released on those, and then this one's the ones that got re-released on PlayStation, right? And
so not Empire and Return. That's what we were talking about. Where I think we were talking about like the confusion of which game did we play. But yeah, no. So regular Super Star Wars got the re-release on PlayStation 4. Empire and Return are, well, I guess Wii Virtual Console or stuck on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, but like the Wii stuff is weird because it's like
still, yeah, that's still
bound on it, right? Like there's like so many games that didn't make it to Wii's Virtual Console, yet a licensed property with a huge name behind it could.
Yeah, like I could see these being re-released like in a package again in the future, but like I think a lot of it helped with LucasArts already being a thing in the video game industry. So like I feel like that probably plays a huge part on why this licensed game ended up being the quality that it has too. They had people that would, actually have to take it a little more serious probably or something, versus just like a company just contracting the whatever.
So, Matt, I think you mentioned this before, but you said Empire is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Mark, did you say what yours was?
No, but
the special edition 4, 5, and 6 combined.
Yeah. Wait, it's all one movie in my opinion, but I don't know. I always flip flop between 4 and 5, because my favorite thing about Star Wars, even though like the Jedi thing kind of like is kind of what roped everyone in, I kind of liked the dogfights. Like it's always about like the ship combat. I wish I appreciate more of that. And End of 4 kind of had a lot of that going on, and beginning of 5 had that too. So it's like Empire is typically the more popular one. 6 has its moments too. I don't know. I guess on the whole, I'll say 4. Screw it. I'll say A New Hope. I always started with it anyway. Yeah.
I think I liked 6 the most, if I remember correctly.
6 has the cool speeder bike stuff.
Yeah, that stuff was neat. I feel like I liked the ending of 6. Right? Everybody hates the Ewoks, but I think I liked the Ewoks. I think that's...
I have a problem with the Ewoks.
I don't... Yeah.
It's the precursor to Jar Jar Binks.
I don't mind the Ewoks. I don't like the song.
I like the song.
I don't want it to end with a stupid song. That's
the song was good. I remember so I didn't watch all of these until 2015, maybe? Right? When did that Battlefront game come out on PS4? 2015?
Oh, That Battlefront game.
Yeah, that one.
Uh, yeah, that sounds right. 15, 14.
That hit, and I was like, I kind of want to play that. Like, it just, I wanted like a big dumb game to play, and I can't remember now if I bought. No, I didn't buy it. I thought about buying it, and then I was like, I haven't watched. At that point, the only one I'd seen was episode 1. I went to the drive-thru, and there was a double feature of like episode 1 and something else. So we saw it, and I was like, I didn't like that game. I played the Pod Racer game on 64. That was pretty good. And then I'd like caught half of like episode 2 or 3 on TV, and then everything else you just fill in the gaps from pop culture, right? You kind of know what's gonna happen, and then at some point, I don't know. So I sat down. A friend of mine had all of the original cuts, like all the post-edit, pre-edit, whatever. The original cut. Sat down, watched 4, 5, and 6 in a night. And maybe I liked 6 the best because it, to Mark's point of like watching everything back to back, it just kind of had like a nice finale to that arc. So maybe that's why 6 stands out to me. But yeah, I don't remember the Ewoks. But it did like.
I mean, Luke's never looked better.
That's true. I did like that 5 ends where the bad guys win, and that's fun, right?
I think that's why I like 5. I think I liked it then because I always liked the snow and the speedster stuff.
That too,
but
yeah.
like I think that always was like a cool part for me as a kid. But then growing up, I think it has like the most mature themes of the 3. And yeah, I like that uneasy feeling. It's not a happy ending by the end of that. Actually, Luke is down an arm.
Anyway, I didn't mean to go too meandering on that, but just to the point that like I do think that the game itself, I was impressed that it was able to transcend even like a bit of distaste going into it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. That's your favorite movie. What is your favorite Star Wars game?
Oh, Knights of the Old Republic, number 1.
The first one. Yeah, okay. Mark?
Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
Hey. No one said Force Unleashed for Wii. I'm surprised.
No. A close runner-up, I haven't played the second one, but the new boy, I don't remember, Jedi Survivor or whatever the hell it's called, but the first one. I like that game a lot too. But no, Knights of the Old Republic that's the one.
Have they made your favorite? I'm sorry, not your favorite. Have they made your dream Star Wars game yet?
I think it's
what's the closest.
I think it's that. The one I just said, the first, not Jedi. What is the name of that game? The one
Jedi Survivor.
Jedi Survivor, I think, is the second one, the one that just came out.
Oh,
I'll figure it out. But that one,
that you think is your dream Star Wars game?
I think I always wanted to like wield a lightsaber, and I think just there's definitely been lightsaber games, but I like the mechanics and the gameplay of that one a lot.
Yeah,
that
know.
Seems
for like because like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, they kind of hit a lot of spots for me that I really like in a game. Where like, especially if you're following the character of like Kyle Katarn, like I like that you kind of start out as like a kind of like a Han Solo type, and then you eventually become a Jedi type. And then he becomes a teacher, and he knows Luke, and it's right after 6, and so like it's nice to have all that tied in. But ship combat wise, I like that most recent game EA did.
Rogue Squadron, or was it just Rogue or Squadrons?
I think it's Squadrons.
Yeah.
I played a little bit of that in VR, and that was actually really cool. I just didn't play enough of it, but dream-wise, I think it would be. I would want something from like the comics to be adapted, but I don't think it would happen now. I don't know if it was like Luke's like son or like grandson,
Is it
something like that.
New or redacted comics?
Redacted.
Yeah,
it was from like
buddy.
It,
Sorry,
it was it
Mickey
was shit,
Mouse
like,
will say otherwise.
yeah, like it was stuff that like Dark Horse was doing or something like that, and yeah, like a descendant of Luke's was just like a real like jerk, didn't want anything to do with anything, and then has to turn around, like anti-hero becoming hero type thing.
The old Damian Wayne story.
Yeah,
that
would have been cool. He was like just a ruthless like space pirate, then eventually accepts being a Jedi.
It did seem like 1313 was supposed to be pretty good, not to.
Yeah, I've always been the give me the lightsaber, but playing as Boba Fett or whatever what that was going to end up being would have been cool. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the name of the game I could not think of.
Fallen Order.
I needed to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, that first Battlefront game is a lot of fun, but again, I'm about the... That's the cool thing about it. Like, I could boot up Call of Duty and get the shooting experience, but, like, the lightsaber is the unique gameplay aspect that Star Wars, the property, has to offer.
Final word on Star Wars, Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
No, not really. I think I said everything I wanted to say. We hit the performance. I'm just looking through my notes in my review. Oh, the performance, difficulty, the performance making it more difficult.
Yep.
Dips, game harder. God, yeah, I hit all my bullet points.
Mark? It's just I think it is a very nice looking game. It's good presentation despite its little setbacks with technical limitations. I think it is a ruthless game. It is relentless. You are never safe. But it has a lot to offer. I mean, it's just a high action game, but has that old school brutality to it. I don't know. I would recommend people to at least try it just to see if it's their type of game. But thankfully, Star Wars is a big enough of a franchise that there are so many types of games in that universe that probably appease to every type of player. So there's something out there for everyone. But if you want something arcadey, I'd say it's worth checking out.
It is time that we rank Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back on the list. If you want to see all the games we've ranked so far, head on over to thefreecheese.com/the-list. It's the difficult part of the show each week.
This is very hard because when I'm like looking at my score here, I have two aspects where I am like super high, and then I have two aspects where I'm super low. So it makes my thoughts on the game almost confusing.
Feeling a little conflicted.
Yeah, the gameplay is not my favorite part. I'll just leave it at that. But there's the other parts I like a lot. Now, can you get to those other parts by playing the game? I don't know. Right. You may never know the rest of the game after Hoth.
Yeah.
No, I kind of want to put it with our friends, our block of Game Boy Color games here.
I think it fits there. You're looking
I was thinking higher. But I can see that now. Never mind.
Yeah, you're in the the Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil Gaiden, WWF Betrayal, area.
Yeah, just to kind of, I mean, I feel this as well, but also to help break up our little Game Boy Color block. I do think I like Metal Gear Solid on Game Boy better than this. Now, Gaiden Betrayal, I think that's where I separate. I think that's where I think I like Super Star Wars better than Gaiden.
I think that's actually a perfect spot.
Sounds good to me. I didn't really have a spot before. Like, I was for some reason my brain went to like around X-Men 2. So I was just thinking just like in terms of just like side scrolling, like difficulty, challenging, but then
yeah, I agree, yeah.
But I like X-Men 2 better. Like,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I like X-Men more.
No debate there.
X-Men's definitely a more solid experience.
Yeah.
Need more games with Nightcrawler, that's for sure.
I agree with that. Well, there's our updated list there at thefreecheese.com/the list. Right between Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil Gaiden sits Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I guess we'll close out. Did either of you play Return of the Jedi, the follow-up to this one?
Yes, I own it. I never beat it. There was it's late. It has to be late in the game. I never really went back and looked it up as an adult, but I remember distinctly there is a level in Endor where it's not left to right. I think it's vertical, or like I never knew where to go. I never could figure out where to go, and I always got stuck there because I would just die to an enemy looking for my way around.
Yeah, I never played it.
But like I said earlier, that one's kind of cool. You could do like the pass the controller thing with lives because you could character select. Like I said, Leia had a staff which was played a little bit different than a lightsaber, but she was a little bit more quicker than Luke. Luke, of course, kind of played very much like Empire, and then Han and Chewie I think interchanged because, of course, due to events in Empire, Han's not around for a bit of the first movie. For the first part of Return, but yeah, it's it's a lot of the same, but a little bit different as well.
Final question: would you play a modern remake of, or I'm sorry, not remake of this game, but a modern reinterpretation of the movie?
Oh, for sure, I think so. I would do any of these. I would do any of these original trilogies as well.
Like I'll admit that like my fandom for Star Wars has died down over the years. Like I'm definitely not into it as much as I used to be.
I'm right with you, Mark. I'm
back in like the mid 2000s or something. That's probably where like I stopped really caring. Kind of like right before Episode 7 happened.
I make everyone mad by saying that 7, 8, and 9 are just popcorn movies to me. You want to get under a Star Wars diehard skin? Just say it's a popcorn. All those are popcorn movies.
It's just anything around that's just kind of just in and out for me. So like I've definitely like teetered off. But that being said, I still appreciate what Star Wars has been or what has offered to me in my life. So like yeah, revisiting that old stuff would be great, especially if I could relive those the ship combat more than anything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for hanging out with us for another fine week, dear listener. Be sure to come back next week when we add a 2023 video game to the list, Street Fighter 6, that I almost called Super Street Fighter 6, but we're not there quite yet.
Not yet.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it another year. Come back, check us out for that. Of course, head over to thefreecheese.com/the list for everything else on the list so far, and the glorious write-up and breakdown of everything we're doing this month. Until then, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Bye.